One of the things I was thinking about during the bonus, but we already ran along, was code reviews. One of the number one contentious things out there for developers.
It is, but I've been in some places where they're not. It's like it is, and I'm probably one of the worst. And it's not because of my code being like me being tied to my code, but it's just because I'm like, get it done. I'm like, I don't want to look at this anymore. I want to have this task done and move on to the next one. And so my like get it done attitude and just like move is probably one of the most pain in the ass things for people who are dealing with a code review. And it frustrates me because I'll be like, shit, I forgot that. And I'd like, or I missed that thing or whatever it is. So, whoo.
But that's the whole thing, though. I mean, because code reviews are about keep holding everyone accountable to standards. And if you don't hold them to standards, things fall apart. So
I'm telling you, this is like I know I'm cutting you off. I'm sorry. But I've been playing around with all these ideas and looking at stuff on this like vibe coding and stuff like that. I was actually talking to somebody today that is a non-technical person, and they're trying to do vibe coding to solve some of their problems. And they're like they do web design and development stuff like that. So they're like sort of, but not full developer level. They're more like CSS and make stuff pretty with the tools that are there. And I was talking about that, and so they got to a point where it wasn't working. And it's interesting because to me, I think the vibe coding thing is actually a great way to practice code reviews. Is because what you're going to do is basically what you should be doing as a manager. You're going to say, go build this thing. And then you're going to go take that stuff and go, okay, this is where it's wrong. This is where it's wrong. Change this, change that, move this around, adjust this, do those things. It's all code review. And if you don't do it, if you don't review it, if you don't test it, then stuff's going to break and things are going to be horrible. And it really is a good way to get you in the habit of looking at stuff. And for me, it's getting me in a habit too of just like, okay, I'm going to take this thing, it's not right, and I'm going to go, set it aside, go fix it, and then pull it back in, as opposed to bigger things. And I know it, like code reviews in particular, like the very big ones where you just got too much, or it's just not. Like that, like you said, I think the worst ones is when somebody, and I hate it when I do it to myself, when somebody reformats stuff, and then the next thing you know, it's like everything changed. You're like, well, screw it. Okay, it must work, or something like that. Or you spend forever walking through doing a code review, and that's not horrible, but it's like when you're also a developer, when you've also got other tasks to do, it can be a pain. And that is something. I think it's important that this is one of the things that I worked with my guys was what should we put into a code review? Because they're sitting there and they're not saying, they're not the most senior developer or something like that. But so initially they're like, well, I don't know if that's even part of my job. And it's like, well, definitely it is. You've been invited to a code review, you should. And then we talked about like the value in it, that you're going to learn stuff, but you can also teach stuff. There's going to be things you're going to know about the application, about the code, stuff like that other people won't. So there's going to be value in that. There's sometimes you're going to have a different approach. You're going to be like, hey, why didn't we do that? Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's going to educate you, sometimes them. But then the other thing was like, how much time? They're like, should it take me a minute to get through a code review? Should it take me 10 minutes to get through a code review? And we had some discussions about that, about like, well, this is what a code review should look like. And the answer is yes, it could be any one of those. It depends on what you're reviewing and how complex it is and things like that. And then honestly, how right the code is, because if you have stuff that's doing something really weird or really out there, then sometimes it's going to take longer because you're going to have to research it and all of that goodness. So, all right, let's dive into, this will be interesting, accounting tips for side hustles, how to manage invoicing and billing like a pro, which once again, it's like great title. So we'll see how this one goes when we go 3, 2, 1. Hola! We are back again for yet another episode of Building Better Developers, working on our Spanish as well, one single word at a time. I happen to be Rob Broadhead. I am one of the founders of Developreneur, also the founder of RB Consulting, where we are out here to help you leverage technology better. Bottom line, we help businesses simplify your technology, build a clear roadmap, and move your way into the future of growth. The people we talk to are going to be people like startups and growing businesses, companies in transition where you're trying to pivot, you're trying to move, you're trying to step into a new area, a new clientele, a big new customer. These are things where you need clear vendor agnostic technology. I haven't used that one before here, but I'm going to use that now because that's part of our deal is that we are technology and vendor agnostic. We're not going to sit here and tell you that this is the package or one of these three options is what you have to take. We're going to talk to you about what you do. And then we're going to craft a special recipe for you for success, give you a roadmap and let you take it and run, or we can help you implement it however it needs to be done. And that can include things like simplification, automation, innovation, integration, lots of different ways to take, essentially thinking of the steps of your processes and find ways to do those better, faster, smarter. Some people would call us a fractional CIO. We're just here really to be a full-time partner. Now, good and bad. Now, this is actually the hardest part. I get messed up with this sometimes, trying to think of what is my good and my bad. So let's see. In the last week, wow, honestly, things have been very good. It's really interesting is that there are things that are out there that are like, life, business, stuff like that. There's always things just like, oh, this could be a little bit better. There's things like we're like at a crossroad. We're finishing a couple of projects. We're trying to figure out what the next projects are. There's always some bad and some angst and stuff like that goes with this because you're like, okay, well, what are we going to do next? And especially us, because it's like we might shift gears and go to completely different technologies or a completely different approach. So that is, I guess, a little bit of a bad thing. However, the good thing is that we have a pipeline. We have of people. We're getting to talk to people, and it really has freed us up to do those like sales calls and stuff like that, which are, salesy and things like that. But we're not really heavily sales. I'm not that kind of person, but I am a heavy talk to you about your business kind of person. And those are great. So while I am not, I guess technically not working necessarily in my business, I'm really more working on my business. It is awesome. It is fun. It is a great way to learn how a lot of different people do their stuff. And every time I've walked in these conversations, I've walked away going, wow, that's cool. I didn't know people did that way, or that people might think of doing that way, or particularly that would be like the special secret sauce that a company uses. Just like passing stuff over from one co-host to another. I don't know if I do it any special or anything like that, so I'm just going to toss it. I lost it. I was going to try to get some really cool thing. Casting like a newbie. Go for it, Michael. Improve upon my mediocre effort.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Meloche. I'm one of the co-founders of Developreneur, Building Better Developers. Check us out on Developreneur. I'm also the owner and founder of Envision QA, where we help businesses run better by making sure that the software works the way it should. Essentially, make sure that the software is working for you and you're not working for your software. Whether you're managing customers, selling online, or just running a clinic, we make sure that your systems are more reliable, more efficient, and easier to use. That means fewer headaches, happier customers, and more time to focus on growth and your business. We handle things like building customer tools, fixing slow and buggy systems, setting up automation testing, and make sure your software is ready before you launch. In short, we take care of your tech behind the scenes so you can focus on working on your business and enjoying your customers and making money. Learn more at envisionqa.com. Good thing, bad thing. Well, let's see. Good thing I had a little bit of time this past weekend I just had to disconnect from things for a little bit. So I pulled out my Nintendo Switch and I started playing Hollow Knight, which I found out for some reason, the way the controllers are set up on the Nintendo Switch Pro versus the PlayStation controller, I can play the game better on the Nintendo than I can on the PlayStation. I'm enjoying this game so much more for the third time around than I did the first two tries, and it's just fun. It's a great game. I'm looking forward to the sequel. So I guess the bad thing is I don't have time right now working on the end of a project to really dedicate too much time to gaming, but I was able to get a little bit of gaming time in.
That is always a plus. I'm hoping this year that I'm going to get a little bit of finally get back to like take a serious break towards the end of the year and get caught up on some of my gaming. My various devices are occasionally saying, "Hey, it'd be great to play us every more than 30 seconds once a week."
Outer World too.
More importantly, um, diving right in. So this is accounting tips for side hustles: how to manage invoicing and billing like a pro. We kicked this out. Chat GPT, we're back on that, kicked out the great title. And it says it can really resonate with freelancers, entrepreneurs, and developers who are just starting to monetize their work. Here's how you could break down an engaging podcast episode. Episode flow and talking points. 1. Introduction: why accounting matters for side hustlers. Explain why good financial habits make or break a side hustle. Highlight common mistakes. For example, mixing personal and business funds, ignoring taxes, inconsistent invoicing. That is a season in itself. I think so. First off, I think there's two big things for this. The first one is that you need to understand that a side hustle is not just free money or something like that. That when you step into a side hustle, you still are needing to deliver products and services. And way too often, I have run into businesses and owners that have had somebody that's working on something. It was a side hustle and it got to be too much and they gave up and they left somebody high and dry. That is not cool. It's great for me because I get that business at some point, but it sucks for everybody else and it's just not a good way to be. So be aware of what you're doing. Be aware of what you're charging and what your time is worth, and making sure that when you step into a project that you are not going to get to a point halfway through you're like, I didn't ask for enough money. This isn't worth it, because that is not a good way to work. Secondly, just briefly, I'm going to say from the legalities and stuff like that, go do like a Google search or talk to ChatGPT or one of those AI tools about famous people that ended up in tax trouble. And you will find really cool things like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Basically, the entire show existed because somebody didn't pay their taxes. We won't say who he is, but he did go on to earn a lot of other money and do a lot of other stuff. There are a lot of very famous musicians and actors and actresses and stuff like that that got into all kinds of trouble. And we can do it even though, yeah, they make tons of money and they weren't paying attention to what they were doing enough. We, even as small business owners and personal people, you can end up with a serious little tax bill if you don't watch out. So make sure that you're understanding for your own good and also for your legality good of being able to make sure that the money goes to the right place. And the mixing personal and business is, again, it's just like, if it's a side hustle, make it a side hustle. Make it a business. If you're not going to make it a business, don't bother with charging money and stuff like that and just make it a hobby. If you're going to do a side hustle, if you're going to build a business, do it the right way, because otherwise you're just playing at it. You might as well be a kid that's got his little plastic thing where he's making plastic tacos and selling them or something like that that's totally fake. Do it for real. Trust me, it is worth it to you as well. It's such a good learning experience. It will help you, even if you don't take that business all the way, it will help you talk to other business owners in the future. Very quick, had to run through those. Go ahead, Michael, your thoughts on this first point.
Yeah, so why accounting matters, simply put, if you don't know how to budget your personal finances, you better do that for your business, because if you don't, you're not going to know if you're making money, losing money. You're not going to know where you're accountable for, and things are going to get off the rails very quickly. And a little side point to this, if you are doing this as a side hustle, basically as a solopreneur, you are legally bound. You can be sued for a lot of things that you don't do. If you can't pay your bills, you can be sued for it. If you're going to pull the trigger and really try to run this as a business, go register as a business, get an LLC, protect yourself. But that means you also have to ensure that your accounting and your books are up to date, that you have good accounting, good books. I am pretty good about this. I will tell you the number one trick, and I'm sure I'm jumping ahead, is one of the things that helps me is I take pictures of all the receipts for all business transactions that I do. Because if I lose that receipt, you have to then somehow justify that you made the payment for this and that it was a true business expense. Otherwise, at the end of the year, you're going to be, Uncle Sam's going to be like, hey, that doesn't count. Oh, you owe us more money. Or, oh, you need to pay for that. So accounting matters not just to run the business, it also matters to stay ahead of the law and make sure that you don't end up broke and basically ruin your personal finances in the process.
So moving on to number 2, setting up the basics, separate bank account and credit card for business expenses, simple accounting tools, Wave, QuickBooks, Self-Employed, FreshBooks, or even Excel, Google Sheets to start, keeping receipts and using apps for expense tracking. Definitely, we've talked about that before. Make sure you have a separate account for your business, whatever it happens to be. I, many years ago, started separating stuff out for all of my little like side hustle businesses. They were not official businesses. They were just me doing things. But it really helped. For example, like even at the end of the year, because they are business expenses. So when I wrote books, all the stuff that went into that came out of the money that went in and the money that came out all went into specific accounts. All that stuff still there. So if I ever had to go back and figure out what it cost me to do this thing or what I earned to do that thing, I can go do that. I can go track that stuff down. Even though a lot of it, nobody cares tax-wise because it is way too old and way beyond all that stuff, but it's still there. So you can look at things and see how things change over the years, I guess, if nothing else. I do want to just jump on the simple accounting tools. Use a real one. I mean, you can use a spreadsheet, you can use some of these things, but use something that is an actual accounting tool because, again, it will be a learning experience. Just realizing that you can't just put like, I did this and it's X amount, and I did this and it's X amount, and I did this and it cost me that. Learning how accounting, if you've gone through accounting principles in school and things like that, and you understand it, great. But even then, I think it's very useful to actually think about your business as a business and what are the classifications of your expenses and your revenues and how do you want to track that and how do you gather it at the end of the year? Those things that a lot of people think that's just big business. That's just people that have they're out on a stock exchange somewhere and stuff like that, a public corporation, but private corporations do it too. And it wouldn't hurt you to understand it better because you never know when your next customer or solution is going to be accounting and finance based. Thoughts from you, Michael?
So I already mentioned the receipts. Don't be the guy that has a box full of receipts and takes them to the accountant and hopes that they will figure it out for you. No. Use those tools. Waves is especially great. It's free. And they have a free tier, and the free tier does a lot. If you don't want to pay for free and you can't afford things, Google Sheets is really good. Libre, if you can afford Microsoft Excel, great. I'm going to quickly jump on the first point there because I will say when I rebranded my business from Meloche Consulting to Envision QA, thank God I had a separate bank account. However, make sure you get a business credit card. Using your bank card to pay for bills, especially early on, you can get in trouble if your account is hacked or somehow someone gets a hold of your debit card, credit card information. That is not as protected as a credit card. Your credit card, it's flagged, it's marked as fraud. The money is immediately put back in. If it's in a bank, it can take anywhere between 3 to 4 days to a couple weeks to get that money put back in. And at that point, you could be in trouble paying payroll, could be in trouble paying bills. So make sure you do separate the two, make sure you protect yourself, and definitely get that credit card because even though credit cards have higher interest rates, if you're doing your bookkeeping correctly, you should be able to pay that off every month and not incur costs. One additional tip with that is get a credit card that has points that will benefit your business. If you're a computer company that has a lot of Apple products, get an Apple card. If you buy a lot of electronics and other things that are not Apple, maybe go get a Best Buy credit card. Use the point system of credit cards to their fullest, and one, you're protected. 2, you're getting rewarded for just running your business. And then 3, you know where the money's going because a lot of those have good tracking systems for where you're spending your money.
This is not supported by Dave Ramsey for those of you guys who know who that is, but there is a lot to be said for points and things like that. And definitely, understanding cash flow. it's important if you have vendors and things like that and you've got bills to pay, you don't want to suddenly have to pull out of your personal bank account to cover stuff that your business does. But also when you ever get to the point to having contractors and employees and things like that, is people like to get paid, and if they don't, that can cause some problems. So make sure that you understand cash flow. These are the kinds of things that this is what running a business is, and this is where we do step up to that level. And even I know, so don't stop me right there. I know some people go through and they are entrepreneurs and they couldn't find their way through Excel spreadsheet, much less figuring out how to, like, I don't know, even start QuickBooks and enter something in, but they don't know debits from credits and all that kind of good stuff. But you should, because that's what makes you a better entrepreneur, a better business, a better developer, a better business. All of that stuff is having that solid and secure knowledge. It's like by the time you're done, you have your own MBA. That's pretty cool. Invoicing like a pro. What a professional invoice should include: name, business info, client info, services, dates, payment terms, why net 30 or due on receipt matters, tips for faster payments, use payment links or embedded pay now buttons, offer multiple payment methods, PayPal, Stripe, ACH, etc., automate recurring invoices if doing subscription style work. This is again, it's almost a season in itself about invoicing and how to do it and what you do and how strict you are and things like that. I will jump real quickly on the payment terms matter. If it's a little thing where it's like, if it's just me and Michael and something that's like, maybe like, hey, can you get me that pay? Like, sure, because we know each other and stuff like that. As soon as you step into a business, even if I know Michael, if he's got a somewhere that's got to go somewhere into his company, it could take quite a while to get back. And those payment terms matter because a lot of businesses will look at that and say, okay, payment terms, net 90. I don't have to look at that until 89 days from now. Stuff like that is there. Like a lot of businesses, because they're looking at cash flow, they may wait till the absolute last second. And if they do it and they go over, it doesn't hurt to have something that says, hey, if you make it, if it's late, we're going to tack on a 1% fee or whatever it happens to be. Those kinds of things are not bad. Only other thing I will say with all of those is, and actually it goes back to credit cards as well, but definitely taking payments, is make sure that you understand what are the fees involved with it, because sometimes it can add up over time, especially if you're dealing with smaller transactions. If you're dealing with huge transactions, thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, lucky you, millions of dollars, it's not necessarily going to be as big a deal, but there may be limits. And it does get back into a little bit. You want to make sure you're clear. Some of what Michael talked about is sometimes banks will put holds on certain amounts, and then suddenly, yes, you have the money, but you actually can't do anything with it for a week or sometimes 2 weeks. And trust me, that is frustrating and something you don't want to deal with, because banks can be very non-personal. I think I stole enough of them there, so I think I'll toss the rest of those over to you.
I will say, been there, done that. Because I had, with one of the contracts I had, there was a lot of large payments up front to get the account going, to get the project going. And the bank held it because I had rebranded the company. So to the bank, I was a new entity. So now every single check I deposited was flagged for 10 to 30 days, no matter what it was. And it was annoying. And it finally, after 3 months, supposedly you're supposed to build history and all that. I had history with my previous company, but because you become a new entity, it resets. So be cautious of that, especially if you're rebranding. The other thing I'll point out here is, depending upon your payment method, if you are trying to recoup, if you have like a 3% that you have to pay that you want your customer to pay if they pay by credit card. Gas stations do this. Hey, you get 5% off if you pay by cash or something along those lines. You can do something similar, but make sure the tool you have allows you to accept a payment for that. I'll warn you that like Waves does not. PayPal, it depends on the payment tool you plug into PayPal. I know with the like QuickBooks Online or whatever it is, the online tool, like Stripe, depending upon the tier you pay, you can charge for that. But now you're paying more money to charge your customer for that. So you're still, it almost is a wash. So be careful trying to recoup some of those costs, because you may end up paying more money to try and keep that. And the last thing I'll point out here is, within some of this, especially with the banks. If you're plugging in these tools like ACH, things like that, there are hidden costs involved with that. The banks will charge you for that. You might be able to pass that along. You might not. So do your homework first before you get into that later and find out that, oops, I can't pay my employees because I lost $20 on a transaction fee.
Billing best practices. Set clear terms before you start work. Deposit, milestone billing, project-based versus hourly. How to handle late payments gracefully but firmly. And importance of contracts or agreements even for side hustles. I have lived every one of these in the positives and the negatives. I have definitely, particularly early on when it was a side hustle, when I was building up my business before it was truly a business, there were a lot of times that I ran into issues. And actually, even since then, there have been more than a few times that I've run into issues. This goes back to requirements and things like that, and making sure that there is very clear, like, this is what done means. And making sure that you are honestly, I hate it because I like to be that trusting fool, but you cannot be. And there's been way too many times that people have I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And if there's not money up front, there is always that chance that, 15 days or 30 days later or 60 days later or whatever it is, they're like, we don't really want to pay that. And unless you want to and depending on what it is, especially a side hustle, because a lot of times it's so small, it's not worth it chasing it down. And you just write off maybe hours or products that you did. Now, there are things you can do to make sure that you protect yourself so that you don't, for example, deliver a finished product until you've been paid. Of all people, a lawyer many, many years ago, said that, and I think it's common in law schools or whatever, is that you do not go to court until you have been paid, until the check has cleared. And I think that kind of an idea is something we should have, is you do not deliver source code. You do not deliver a solution until the money has been paid. And I have had too many times and actually one would be too many, but I've had a couple others where people end up getting late into a project and they try to wrangle it around thinking hey, we're going to dangle the fact that we're going to pay you the money we owe you and try to squeeze a little extra work out or something like that. So make sure that you have contracts and that you cover yourself. Make sure if you're going to go in and you're working but you haven't been paid yet, that you trust me, it'll be worth it. Set hard rules of, this is how far I'm going to go. This is all I'm willing to accept from the start. And then make sure that that even your customers can understand that. That's something that you should be hey, if I'm only going to accept a $500 receivables waiting for this person from this company, then when that thing hits $500, I'm sorry, I've got to deal with it. You've got to get paid, or the work is paused, or we quit, or whatever you need to do. Because I have been burned horribly by that early on. And I sort of just kept on doing stuff, partially because the bill was such a level that I needed to keep doing it. And it was valuable to keep earning money theoretically. And I did eventually get paid, but it was really a pain in the buttocks, as some people would say. So I know I'm on a soapbox, but get a contract. Be clear from the start, and don't be afraid to call people out when they slip or they slide. And this goes back to, you need to be doing the same. You need to be a business, and you need to treat people like you're working with a business. I would give you time to talk, but I'm looking at it, I think we're just about out. So I'm going to let you get the bonus.
For this. Get a lawyer, find a lawyer site or things like that. Get some legal documents involved. If you don't know about contracting, you can easily go find documents online, or just go hire LegalZoom or something like that to get some legal documents that you can put out there when you have customer signed contract. So you at least have something legit or legal enough that if they don't pay and you have to go after the customer, you have the documents and the contract to go to court.
That is the kind of thing that you will get if you actually are watching us on YouTube, is bonus material like that. Ageless wisdom from Michael that comes after we stop recording the audio side and we go strictly back to the video side. So if you're on the podcast, go jump out to Developreneur channel on YouTube right now, and you can catch whatever great bonus material comes after this episode. We probably don't actually mention that often enough. We do often mention, shoot us an email at info@developreneur.com. Let us know what you think. if you think that I cut Michael off too much, I will cut you off too. But no, I won't actually. We will change our stuff up because that's what we do. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. What are some of the topics we've covered? What are things we haven't covered that you would love us to do? Or perspectives maybe that we haven't taken yet or we haven't dove into that you would love to hear from us. You can leave us a review anywhere you hear this, whether it's out on YouTube, whether it's out on any of the podcasting various sites and stuff like that. X, we are at Developreneur. You can go to the Developreneur page on Facebook, and developreneur.com. You can leave us stuff all over the place there, even the contact us form, so we can hear from you and you can help us build a better podcast to build better developers such as yourself. You're giving back to the community when you do so. I don't want to put too much pressure on you, but there you go. The community needs you. So give us some feedback and we will be more than glad to sing your praises moving forward because of that. That being said, we're going to go on to our bonus round after this. So those of you that are on YouTube, you get it. The rest of you, come on over, check it out. The water's fine. Jump on in. Go out there and have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time. All right. I just thought that's a perfect way to just milk that a little bit because I was like, oh, we're running out of time. I'm like, oh no, they're great. We get to do like a little plug. Speaking of plugs, all the way back because I suck at it and I'm still working on my little intro and stuff like that. Everybody, rb-sns.com. Check us out. That's the RB site. I'm trying to that's what happens when you improv all the time. You don't always catch all the details. We missed a good chunk of stuff, and I'm just going to give the highlights of it this time because we can. Billing best practices, and I'll give you the top one on each. Set clear terms before you start work. That was one we just did, didn't it? Yes. Managing taxes and compliance. Track income and expenses from day one. Pro tips for growing side hustlers, automating reminders and follow-ups. Listener takeaways, is there bonus stuff, a checklist of 3 to 5 things to do this week. For example, set up a separate account, pick an invoicing tool, write down billing terms, encourage action rather than perfection. Getting started is the key. I think I'm going to do a quick one and then switch it, and then bounce it back to you. As far as it says set up an account, write down billing terms, pick an invoicing tool. One of the things that I found has been a great thing that I did early on, and it's not because I'm brilliant or anything, it's just something that I did because I'm sort of geeky like that, is I had a little spreadsheet and I tracked my hours fairly meticulously, not down to the quarter hour, but hours that I worked on stuff from way, way, way back when I was first starting to side hustle. So I would have separate hours every week. I had a little spreadsheet and I would go through and I would just sort of keep track of how many hours did I spend on this thing this week, and watched it over the years grow, obviously, because it was a side hustle and now it became then a full-time business. But getting into the habit of tracking my hours really helped me with estimation. It also really helped me understand what I was putting into this stuff. It's one thing when you're like, oh, I got a few hours here and a few hours there, and you get to the end of the year and you realize that you just put in 1,000 hours into your business. Those are some of the things that prompted me to say, I need to be more serious about this, or I need to get paid for this more, or things like that, because you realize that you realize what you are investing into that business. So that would be my one challenge to you, even would be if you don't start tracking your hours, especially your side hustle stuff. And you don't have to be, like I said, down to the minute, but I think having a rough idea will greatly help you. If you're married, don't let your spouse know because they probably will be very unhappy seeing those numbers. Your turn.
I was going to say, I used to use a tool called Toggle. It was a free tool, and you could export your time at the end of the week, and it would give you a little summary of what you were working on, where you're spending your hours. I really liked it, and it's still around, but I think you have to pay for it now. And there's some for what I was using it for, it wasn't worth what I was paying for. So I use my calendar now to keep track of that. One of the things that's interesting of this, and this kind of detracts from the topic today, but Rob is constantly pushing the Pomodoro technique. And as you're working through and you're tracking your hours, you will quickly find out and Rob mentioned this, and I heard it like 1 or 2 episodes ago, where, if you're spending 5 or 6 hours on something, you're probably not spending 5 or 6 hours on something. You're probably not necessarily wasting time, but you're not on task, essentially. And so I switched up my model again, and I'm going back to more 25-5 Pomodoro techniques. But it really was clear that my calendar, well, it reflects what I'm working on, isn't necessarily explicitly what is being worked on. So it's like a general idea. So by being a little more focused with the Pomodoro, it's helped me be more specific. But unfortunately, some of the stuff I'm still working on is a little more granular, a little more, unfortunately, spiky level, where you have more research and stuff. And there's no way around that, unfortunately, because the particular problem I have is the problem's clear, the deployment's not. It's like this is what I have to do, but to test it, I have to deploy it to an environment that is a black box. So in order to get it out there and to test it, I now have to somehow write a solution that goes with my product to test what I'm pushing out, because I can't log into the system that I'm pushing it to test the problem. So long story short, keep track of your time, try to break it down as much as possible, and be true about what you're working on. If you are spending an hour on a problem, are you spending an hour on that problem, or are you spending 30 minutes checking email and not working the problem?
I've done that a couple times recently. I start my Pomodoro timer and then I go grab something, text me or something like that. I'm like, dadgummit, I just like lost a lot of time on my Pomodoro. A couple things on that, because Michael and I have actually had some conversations about such things. One, I have really found that the 25-5 split does not work for me. I will sometimes I'll do a full hour. Usually it's more like 45 minutes and then, a 15-minute break. And even when you're spiking, so where you're like, I need to figure this thing out, then it's still good to just like, okay, I need to walk away for a little bit and come back to it. Another thing I've found is that I have adjusted some of the things I do so that when I'm getting close, I will like work towards the end of a Pomodoro. And then when it runs out, I will kick something off. Like if I have to do a build or something like that, and let that go run while I'm doing something else. And so now I feel like I'm doubly productive, because it's like I was really productive for a while and I got to a stopping point. It's like, okay, now I can go kick this thing off and I can come back later. And I didn't really lose time. Stuff was being done. Or I can also change gears, or I can like kick something off. If it's going to take a couple hours, like cool, kicked it off. I'll walk away, I'll come back, I'll go work on something else for a while, and then eventually be able to come back to it. So there are definitely tweaks that you can make to the Pomodoro approach to having that focused time. And it really is going to come down to like, what are your products? What are your projects, your tasks, and figuring out how to break those things up. And I think one of the best things is figuring out how to break them up into these small little, we'll call them bite-sized chunks that you can do, or being able to gobble a couple of little things up at a time. If you've got like a bunch of little 5-minute tasks and you want to like crank through those.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the big thing. It's like there are things that work well with the 25-5, like you said, and some things that are longer. It's just figuring out that balance. And my problem is, in some of the bigger things, I'll go heads down. Next thing I know, it's 4 hours later. So while that can be beneficial, as long as you are literally focused for that time, you're good. If you find yourself waning, maybe that's time to cut, figure out how long you've been working, take your 5-minute break, and then reset.
Yeah, that's good. I cheated today, as I have like mine runs out. I have focus music, and then it just stops when the time runs out. I don't have alarms or anything like that, but it stops. I'm like, oh, okay, I've hit the end of my Pomodoro. And I was on something that I was heads down, and I was just like, I am not getting up right now. I'm going to keep on doing this. It was just one of those, like, if I get up, I'm not going to get back to what I'm doing. And I'm not going to get back to it. I'm going to have to like reset. So I kept on going. So sometimes you're going to need to do that, but it doesn't hurt to then just like, if you've got a good tool, just reset and just like go dive right into the next Pomodoro, do a couple back to back, and then double out extend the break period between it. Sometimes that works really well. I've had those where I'll say like, I'll do like a couple really close back to back. And then that break time will be lunch or something like that. So I'll just keep going and have a very little, very short switching gears time. You got to be careful doing that. You don't want to do something where you hurt yourself stepping in, so you're well into the Pomodoro before you really are like mentally set for the whatever the process is that you're trying to do. But it is a great way to mix stuff up. So that being said, it is time for us to wrap this one up because we've had a lot of good stuff. We still have a couple episodes left, and we'll see where it goes. I'm still a little bit just like loving this enough where it's just like, let's just keep on going. So like when we did the interviews and it went from like, the interview season, I think I had 78 episodes or something like that. It was crazy. I was just going back through some developer stuff just the other day and looking at some of this stuff. And I was like, oh, I'd forgotten we talked to them. I forgot we talked to them. Those are great conversations. So go back, check those things out. Go check out our library of stuff. And this library is still growing. We are still adding on just every week, just chugging along, adding stuff. We're actually getting, so this is one, like I said several times, we're getting closer to my favorite time of the year where we do the holiday specials of Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. This one will be really interesting because I will not be where I am when we get into Christmas time and New Year's and stuff like that. So I will be really testing out my new digital nomad and remote gear and things like that. So if I suddenly start looking like Max Headroom and jumping around all over, it's because I don't have quite the same internet connectivity that I had before. We'll see how that goes. We got lots of cool announcements coming though, because we're definitely working on these things and trying to make some adjustments and things like that to align Developreneur where we can with you guys, our listeners, and with some of the mission that we've had from the start and making sure that we define our mission properly. As always, I so appreciate your time and you hanging out with us, especially here looking at our ugly mugs for all this time and catching all the little extra crap that we do. Hopefully it is as entertaining for you as it is for us. Actually, if it's half as entertaining for you as it is for us, then that's a win. But go out there and have yourself a great day, great week, and we will talk to you next time around.